Welcome to Adobe Think Tank. I'm Jeff Barrett in what is, well, better than any apartment I could afford in Manhattan. With me is Chris Duffey, Head of AI Innovation and Strategy for Adobe Creative Cloud. Chris, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, first interview of the day. So let's get right into it. Talk to me a little bit about how AI is going to change creativity over the next 10 years. The deep, big questions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they are some really fascinating questions. We're coming off the Think Tank by Adobe yesterday, can be viewed.
And there's a lot of different insights you were getting.
And it was really interesting. I think collectively we all agreed on the power and the possibilities with AI, but within that there's a broad spectrum of even what is AI and the capabilities of AI, specifically.
Ranging from the mundane to the scary, terrifying Westworld stuff, right?
And what I think we all agreed on is the highest order is customer experience. And underneath that is this notion of human and machine are stronger together than either alone. So when we go at kind of that quest to build this ultimate kind of customer experience, if you have that framework of human and machine together is really fascinating.
And they were driving home a lot that the introduction to AI is going to be at a kind of a base level, a first introduction, that there has to be kind of a specific project for an organization. Maybe talk a little bit about companies who aren't using AI, how they can kind of break in first.
Yeah. I think that the first step is what is AI, and it can be defined into three general segments: narrow AI, general AI, and super AI, kind of super intelligence, the Westworld scenario.
Right.
Today, there's only narrow AI, and narrow doesn't do AI justice in the term that it's task focused.
We kind of use it as a catch-all almost,
exactly.
right? But we have to kind of narrow that down. And like super AI sounds like something that you get at a BP.
Yeah, maybe.
Like if you have a Land Rover, you can only get super AI.
Yeah, you can. So in terms of creativity, I think it's a really exciting moment in time for creatives and designers, in the sense that if you look at what's happening in the digital market space, this need to create the experience economy has never been more profound, I think, than in the history of marketing, really. So now we've got this tool where we can marry the artfulness of creativity with the logic of science, and we bring those two together. So human creativity with kind of this computational intelligence can create some really magical experiences.
Talk to me a little bit about, because you had a recent blog post talking about how AI can foster collaboration. Like what can you do with work teams that you couldn't previously do before AI?
I think a great first step is to define the role of the human and the machine, in this case the creative. And you can look at it in three ways. One, the machine and the human can be on an assistant level, right? So the machine can assist the creative in getting the grunt work, in search, in other capabilities. The next layer up is the creative collaborator, and we're doing some really exciting things on the Adobe front where it's being suggestive and predictive. And the highest order is almost a manager level, where it can be there to set some rules, and it can now learn from your habits over time and create kind of these guardrails and flag those areas where you might be deviating out of brand guidelines or deviating out of
And you talk a lot about man plus machine, because AI really is limited on what you program it to do, what you intend for it to do.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about how the human behind AI can best kind of direct that.
Yeah, we brought this up yesterday in the sense that technology is neither bad nor good. It's really a reflection of the human that's kind of creating it. And so quite often you have to consider these biases that are inherent into the system as well. So we chatted a lot about that.
Yeah, whether or not AI contributes to bias or alleviates bias.
I think we came to a collective conclusion that it's a reflection of the humans that are using it.
If you have humans with bias, your AI will have bias.
It's just a reflection.
If not. And yeah, that's the theory that if you have people with bias, you're assuming that the AI will take it away. But again, those are the people programming it. So you almost have to have like you have to have an AI for an AI to like
police the AI. Exactly. But back to your question, where to start? I think that's kind of where a lot of the questions in here at the conference. A number of talks are going to be speaking about that as well. And we came to the conclusion that the best place is starting with the business strategy. What is the business problem? Identifying that AI is of service to the overall
Not assuming we have to use AI, now let's find a reason.
Exactly.
Let's find our reason and then we'll go use it. No, that makes complete sense. Honestly, where do you see the other thing that I thought was really interesting is basically you guys were talking about by 2020 you'll start seeing the next blockbuster happening because of AI. And I love to hate on Blockbuster because it's an easy target and they don't exist anymore. But are there any specific industries that really need to be catching up faster?
The 2020, we had a couple 2020 stats. Another one that prediction that stood out was by 2020, if an organization is not using AI, they will lose marketplace competitive advantage. So
that might even be kind of tame. I mean,
exactly.
You can really almost see that happening now to some extent.
So to your question about what companies are kind of going to pop up by 2020, it's almost this paradox where the startups and the new organizations that can build from the ground up have some sort of a leg up on some of the traditional legacy brands.
It can almost level a playing field, right?
Exactly. So, I think it's a really fascinating time within the business market.
I'd like to think like going with your gut versus going with your gut plus insights is always going to win out, right? But you still...
And that brings up an interesting notion that we touched on as well, is how can you embed emotion into this very...
Because AI is not perfect. I mean, you look at with self-driving, like it's still not going to figure out where a pothole is yet. But there's still pitfalls there. So that's why you need that. But being intentional about where you're taking your AI.
So there's this notion of IQ and EQ.
Yes.
This really fascinating intersection. I think there was some debate on can you infuse emotion from a technical standpoint into an AI model? But we agreed on that output of an AI model can provide emotion and empathy, specifically empathy. And then back to your earlier point about industries that can really be transformative in this new AI revolution. Healthcare obviously is really ripe opportunity.
From
telemedicine,
from the systems to the diagnostics.
Exactly. Zipline in Africa is now delivering medication to remote areas via autonomous AI-driven drones. So really profoundly exciting.
I was in Cincinnati earlier last week, and they were using it to just specifically deal with like small diagnosis. The kind of stuff, nothing crazy. It's not like you're gonna be house and you're gonna say, well, this is definitely not lupus with it. But small things to kind of gear toward another thing so that you can maybe save cost.
Exactly.
Provide efficiency.
And that gets back to the assistant, right? So in that case, it's a medical assistant. Bringing it back to creativity. The opportunities are endless. We were chatting the other day. The only limitation of AI is human imagination at this point. So. Which is a deep thought.
I love like both the practical use of AI and the deep thought. So getting just to kind of close out on deep thought, does a world where there's empathy in AI, I mean, where do you see that world going, and does that excite you? Does that give you pause?
Maybe,
how do you think about it all?
Maybe to define the end, we can define it by using an example from the start. So around the age of 2, infants have this moment called the other mind, this realization where their parents or someone close to them have different thoughts or emotions other than themselves. And I think the creative community, humanity, is going through this similar moment in time where we realize that there's this other intelligence out there that we can leverage to create more creative experiences, to have more emotional experiences. So
it's a fun and wild time, Chris.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for everybody joining us in my new apartment.